First of all, thank you everybody for being here today. This is going to take us a little while, okay? I'm just going to let everybody know this is not a short explanation of what we're going to talk about today. So we appreciate everybody being here with us. We just finished a meeting with community leaders. I want to thank those who have stayed and those who have helped us along this process of getting to where we are today. A special thank you to Council President Sanchez and Council Vice President Jones. What we're announcing today is a true collaborative between the Mayor's office and the City Council to really be a great collaborative within our community, between the community and our police department. Scott Greenwood is with me today. Scott is our expert that is working through some of these processes with us from the DOJ standpoint, but also from the community outreach standpoint. He will speak here in just a few minutes, but a lot of the experience that he had working in the city of Cincinnati and crafting solutions there that actually have a proven track record of working is a big part of how we came to this, what we're announcing today as well. We're announcing the community collaborative today. Last week or two, we announced some community policing councils. And those councils will be set up in each of the 6 area commands, and the media has covered this already. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for steering people towards the website to sign up. We'd ask you again to do that. We need the media leadership in this equation so that we can communicate to our citizens and those who want to participate how they can do that. Today's another example. But when we talked about the community policing councils being specific councils to each and every one of the area commands, we also hinted to you all that we would be announcing a much broader community-based approach to getting input on important issues involving policing in the city of Albuquerque, community police relationships, but also from the standpoint of making sure that everybody has an opportunity, whether they have an opportunity to come to a city council meeting or not, whether they've had an opportunity to meet with the DOJ at this point or meet with me and my staff, which we've had a number of meetings as well. We want to make this, somebody hit I think Rabbi Rosenfeld was on the line earlier. I think he hung up there. But we want to make sure this is a process where everybody can feel like their voices are being heard and being impactful. So the goal is to generate a diverse and broad-based dialogue and then to craft a sustainable action plan in the city of Albuquerque. I'm going to let Scott talk about more of the details, but in essence, it's a 3-phase process. Today, we're going to give you a website that people can go to today and give detailed, specific information on concerns, questions, but also, as importantly, solutions that they think will work. And we're trying to create a dialogue that is solution-based. We know that there's individuals in our community, for good reason, that have frustrations, that are angry, and we appreciate that, and this in no way circumvents that. But we also want people to be thinking about, give your input, roll your sleeves up with us, and help us do the hard work of crafting something that works for all of us. There will be a large information gathering aspect to this. And on Monday, we are going to, at City Council, have a piece of legislation that will put this into place. Councilor Sanchez, Council President Sanchez, and Council Vice President Jones will be our sponsors on this bill. This bill has been crafted between the Mayor's office and City Council in conjunction with John Zaman and his staff, our legal staff, Gilbert Montano, people on our side, with the help of Scott Greenwood to put this together. This bill, I believe, will have an appropriation of $150,000 to allow us to hire facilitators, to allow us to do some media. We hope we can get a lot of earned media as well for this to drive people to this process. 3-step process. First step, engagement. We need people in our community, and we need thousands of people in our community to give us their thoughts, ideas, solutions. Those thoughts, ideas, and solutions will be based on people self-identifying with individual groups. You may identify yourself as a family member who has lost a loved one in an officer-involved shooting. You may identify yourselves as the widow of a police officer that was killed in the line of duty. You may identify yourself as a member of the business community, or a member of the university community, or a member of the youth community, or a member of the Latino community, or the African American community, or Asian American community, or what, we will let people self-identify, but we want your input. That input will then be taken, and we're working right now with the University of New Mexico to take that information. We'll collect it here. We'll send it to experts, unredacted, unedited, and allow them to take that information and put it together and combine it. They will then come back to us as a community, as the mayor's office, as the city council, to each and every one of the self-identified groups, and they will issue a report on what the findings were. What is the community saying? What is the broad-based approach, so that we have a very diverse input from our community to know where we are at and what the needs and wants and desires of our community are. We will then reconvene groups, and there'll be lots of meetings involved in this. We will then reconvene groups to inform them of what their friends and neighbors and colleagues around the community are saying. We may commingle some of the groups at that point. We'll start off with a big kickoff meeting. I'll be there, the counselors will be there, but then we'll have professional facilitators break it up into groups. We'll then bring people back together and share the information. And then we will start a process of negotiating amongst ourselves as a community an agreement. Outside of all the technical side of the equation, outside of use of force policies, outside of what we expect from accountability measures and things, a community agreement. And the goal is to get as many members of our community, diverse members of our community, to come to an understanding where we have identified goals and expectations for our community, for the department that serves our community, in a collaborative discussion. The third phase will be setting up some self-monitoring as a community so that we can keep track of our progress and we can have a candid dialogue, not just today or tomorrow, not just until the DOJ agreement gets crafted, not just until the DOJ work is done here, which may take years, but there's a day where the DOJ process, the technical side of it ends. We want something that's sustainable throughout the decade so that we can look back years and years from now and not be one of the cities who made some progress early on and then saw that progress just slip back because there wasn't an ongoing and robust community involvement. A lot of details, and I'm going to let several folks talk today, and we can answer a lot of your questions about this. And I'm going to have each of the counselors speak as well. But we're going to run this through our Human Rights Office. Gabe, I had you listed to speak. I don't know, you're standing back there like you may or may not want. Gabe Campos from our Human Rights Office will be our key point of contact for this. And he'll be doing a lot of the actual logistical work involved in this, but we will have professional facilitators that we'll hire to do this. I'm going to have Scott Greenwood come up and tell you a little bit more about their experiences in Cincinnati. This won't be exactly like Cincinnati. This is Albuquerque. This is our city. No two cities are alike, but we know this is a best practice and it has worked in Cincinnati. In fact, I think it's one of the shining examples of what has worked well in these processes over the last 20 or so years. And I'll have Scott explain it to you a little bit. Then I'll be honored if each of the counselors would speak a little bit on it as well. Scott's got to wheel himself around here, so
I will. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Don't let me hit you with
No, you're fine.
that thing's like steel at this point. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for coming today. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because Albuquerque isn't Cincinnati, but Cincinnati is the model in police reform, in sustainable police reform. It's something that's widely recognized. The model works. The model works because in that process, for the first time, what we did was we listened to the residents of the community as well as government to government. We listened to the residents, we listened to line officers, we listened to stakeholders. You have very different stakeholders in this community than where I call home. And that's why it's been very important to have the Human Relations Office here identify the types of stakeholders that will participate in this in Albuquerque. The other thing that's different, which is why Albuquerque will become the model for police relations, community relations reform this year, the thing that's different is you're taking leadership of it yourselves. It shows true leadership by the mayor, the council president, and the council vice president. That's the very first act of collaboration here. And the beauty of the process is that while they kick it off, they're the catalyst for it, they fund it, the process really belongs to the people of Albuquerque. And in that process, 13 years ago in Cincinnati, we had 4,500 people involved. In Albuquerque in 2014, a city twice as large, and now when everybody can use the internet and communications can go instantly, we expect thousands and thousands of residents of Albuquerque, whether they belong to these stakeholder groups or not, to be able to share their vision for not just APD, but police community relations, quality of life issues, social justice issues, economic development, and so on. There will be live links, as the mayor said, immediately on the city's website, on the mayor's website, on the council's website, that will collect this information on your stakeholders. The facilitated meetings start large, they go into smaller groups, and eventually they produce negotiators who will negotiate with each other after all this input is gathered. And we're going to ask them several key questions that are pretty specific to find out where the commonalities are and where the issues of contention are. These questions include, what are your goals and expectations for police community relations in Albuquerque? What are your goals and expectations for police community interactions and conduct in Albuquerque? Why are these goals and expectations important to you? In other words, what types of experiences, values, beliefs influence those goals? How do you expect your goals to be achieved? And then what are your specific suggestions and ideas? When we did this process a dozen years ago in Cincinnati, we saw that we were really surprised. We had 8 stakeholder groups. You're going to have far more. But that the 2 groups that had the most overlap in what they really wanted, they were the line officers of the police department and members of the minority community that had the most interactions with the police. And they had about 75 to 80% overlap in what their goals were. And their number one shared goal turned out to be mutual respect. We were stunned. We were stunned to find this out. I think you're going to find, as we go through this process in Albuquerque, that residents have a lot more in common than they really have differences. And that you will be able to then have a crafted action plan that works for this city, that is embraced by this city, so that the reforms that we're doing on the technical side are things that can be sustainable, that we can address the bigger problem, the bigger issue of police community relations, and that you can have these sustainable plans into the future, including on some things that aren't controllable by the police department or the city, but certainly affect quality of life and touch and concern policing in this city. This is something that has never been done at the initiative of a city on its own. This wasn't brought to the city and said, here, this is a settlement agreement. This is for the first time a U.S. city choosing, its elected leadership choosing to launch this extremely broad, extremely important process. In Cincinnati, when we were finished, people don't remember the technical memorandum of agreement as being what changed policing and police community relations. They will tell you today, the collaborative agreement, the one we still live by, even though we're not required to, that is what transformed the city. It transformed that city, and the action plan or collaborative agreement that you reach in this community together through this process will transform this city as well. And I think that shows tremendous leadership by these office holders who are here today. And they deserve a great deal of credit.
Thanks, Scott. Mm-hmm. We'll be glad to take questions as well. I'll let Scott maneuver his way. And I'd like to have Council President Sanchez give us some thoughts, as well as Council Vice President Joe. Councilor?
Thank you, Mayor Berry. Today is a day in our history that I think we can be very proud of. Today is a day that we are going to begin the healing process that will involve the entire community. When the DOJ came out with a scathing report against the Albuquerque Police Department, I truly believe that it was mortally wounding our department. But I believe with these reforms that we are looking at and the police community relations, involving a broad-based number of community members is a step in the right direction. Mr. Greenwood has done this in the city of Cincinnati, and I think that they've had some mistakes that they worked through the process, and we can learn by those mistakes, and this process will even be bigger and better. These are some of the initiatives that will be discussed at Monday night's council meeting. It's a resolution 14-67, and because it's the last meeting in June before we take a break in July, myself and Council Vice President Jones will be asking for immediate action to get this passed. So it will take a 2/3 majority of the council. I know that Mr. Greenwood has met with members of the city council regarding this collaborative, but these are how things work, is by involving our rank and file police officers, by involving their family members, because the family members are also impacted by what takes place with the Albuquerque Police Department. It'll involve the victims' family members. It'll involve faith-based groups. This is a step in the right direction where I feel that we will have thousands of people involved in the process. Today is a defining moment, I believe, in our city as we move forward with this collaborative, because I think it's so critically important that we restore confidence in the men and women that work for the Albuquerque Police Department. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. But with community members working together, we can and we will make a difference. I am also pleased to see, I want to thank John Zaman from our staff for working with Chief Stryker and Mr. Greenwood, and also with Mayor Berry. Again, this is a collaborative effort with the administration, with the entire council, and I feel very optimistic that Monday night, when this is taken to a vote, that this vote will be unanimous by the entire council. I can't speak for other council members, but I believe that they will feel that we are making the right decisions and moving forward, because it involves thousands of people from our community. You know, we've been at meetings where we've had just certain groups come in, and for years, certain people have come to the council meetings and discussed these issues. This will be broader based. It'll be people that have not been involved in the process before. But again, united as a community, we will make a difference. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilor.
Mr. Stryker.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Mr.
Council Vice
President.
President Jones.
Councilor Jones? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President. Just a brief statement, and that is both Council President Sanchez and I are very pleased to be involved with this process. It's an extremely important process that we need to face. We need to get all members of the community from all areas of the city together to discuss not just what's wrong, but come up with ideas on how to fix it, and is also discussing what's right. So we look forward to this. I, like Council President Sanchez, believe that this will be approved by the City Council. It's extremely important. It's extremely important that we start working on it immediately, start making action, start making things better, and healing the wounds. Again, I welcome all members, all corners of the city, people who have not had the opportunity to meet with us, to meet with the DOJ, to meet with other members. It's time for us to all gather together with one goal, and that is to make this a better city, to make the police department a better city, and to make us better citizens. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. This, and we'll open it up for questions in just a minute. This is going to be a lot of hard work. And what I'm asking our community to do is to get engaged. If you're engaged today, stay engaged, stay passionate about the issue, regardless of the viewpoint that you come from, whether you're a police officer or a family that's been involved in police interactions, whether you're a business leader, whether you're a community leader, whether you're involved in education, whether you're the youth of our community. We need you to be involved. We're asking a lot of you as a community. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves. This is the part of the process that's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, a lot of dedication. We're going to do our best, and it talks about it in the legislation, to create forums where people feel comfortable participating. You can participate by going online. You can come to community forums. You can do it through your church. You can do it through our community centers. We're going to try to make this extremely easy for you to participate in, online or offline. But what I think is most important is that we create a place where people feel like they can come and safely and effectively voice their opinions and their solutions. This is a solutions-oriented initiative. So we need people to think about it. Everybody's busy. Everybody's tired at the end of the day. Everybody's out there working with their families, starting their businesses, going to school, whatever it happens to be. We need you to take a little bit of time, get online, fill out these applications, come to these meetings so that we truly have a representation of everybody that's involved, that's a stakeholder in this. It's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift. But we need to do this because I think each one of these individuals, each of these elected officials would agree. You know, elected officials come and go. We're here today. We want to provide the leadership to get this started. But it's really going to be the leadership of the community, regardless of who the next chief or the next mayor or the next city councilor is, to have a process that's in place as a city, a legacy, so that we have a framework and a foundation to go off of when we have difficult circumstances that may happen in the future, but also just setting those expectations to keep ourselves on track. And I think it works nicely with the technical side that we'll be working on with the DOJ. And we assume it'll be somehow incorporated into all of that process as well. So with that, we'd be happy to answer questions you have.
So will there be meetings or public forums that anybody can show up
Yes.
to and talk?
Yes. Yeah. What Scott, what they did in Cincinnati, we're trying to do here is maybe start with a larger, we'll schedule a meeting where a lot of folks can come from lots of different stakeholder groups. We will have professional facilitators at those meetings. We'll kick off the meeting as elected officials, that's fine. But really the facilitators will take the meeting from there. We will let people identify into groups there if they haven't already. We will take people that have gone online, okay? Obviously we want people to go online, tell us what their thoughts and solutions are, and then we'll incorporate that into these first meetings, and then it'll break up. So it'll go from large to small. Then we'll bring people back together, not unlike we're doing with the mental health summits. You know, we were asked by the president, his administration, to be one of the first cities in America to really start a robust Main Street dialogue about mental health. We started off with a larger meeting. We broke up into groups. We've now had 3 or 4 independent meetings around the city, smaller meetings. We'll take all of this input, bring it back together. So we, not only do we know this model worked in Cincinnati for policing, but we know it's working here on our mental health summits that we're having, and we know it's working from a collective impact standpoint, like for example on our homelessness initiative for Heading Home. So yes, anybody that wants to can participate, absolutely. But once again, let me be clear, we want to make sure these forums are a place where people feel safe. This is a solution-based forum. So if folks want to come and protest and do that, they'll have a place where they can do that. But we want people to come into these meetings with solutions and sit down and talk. And that's really what we're going to try to facilitate. And we'll have some rules and things in place to make sure that everybody feel comfortable. Because I'll be honest with you, I have as a mayor had some folks in the community say, I'd like to participate in this dialogue, but I need to understand that I can be in a safe place to do it, where I don't feel like I'm going to be part of a situation. And so we'll do our very best to facilitate that as well.
And we haven't set up a date for the first meeting, but that will be probably held at the convention center.
Yep, we'll make sure that, and a lot of this will be driven by the online response. When people come online and give us their information, we'll have an idea of how many folks we need. You know, how many folks may be coming to the events, and then we'll have a way to communicate back with everybody that's interested, that's taken the time to really get on and do the hard work. We'll be able to disseminate that information to them so that everybody has an understanding of when the meetings are. And then we need your help as a media too, to let folks know. Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Question over here, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
Just a quick
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to miss you.
Can you explain how a self-monitoring system, like how does the city make sure this actually happens and the agreement comes to fruition?
I'm gonna have Scott talk about that as our expert here. I think I know the answer, but I'd rather have him address that.
Our process occurred in the context of litigation, of private litigation that I had through the ACLU of Ohio over race bias policing and excessive force. So it was the settlement agreement in that case. And here in Albuquerque, what we hope to happen is it will be created as an action plan, or it could be called a collaborative agreement. And it would be an agreement. It's like a contract. And then it's signed by those who want to sign it as a statement of principles and agreements on how things are going to be done in the city on those issues. And the groups and the stakeholders that want to sign that can do so. So it is an agreement. It's not just a report.
But I guess the question is, how does the community make sure that's actually implemented?
This is the beauty of it in this city. In this plan as it's drafted, the action plan would have a monitoring committee that is composed of representatives from all of these stakeholder groups. And for real sustainability, those people are going to change over time, those groups are going to change over time, so there will always be a group of citizens, volunteers, residents who are actively reporting on implementation of the action plan and reporting that to City Council and to the Mayor's office. So we can track progress. If we're not making progress on certain items that the community consensus was, that'll be known by the Mayor and the Council. That'll
press.
be and the press and the public. So it's self-monitoring. It's taking it as an initiative of the community. I mean, these councilors and the mayor, they're the catalyst, but the community owns the process and ultimately then owns implementation.
So we need passionate members of the community, and we need people that will hand this off when their work is done. We have 250 plus community groups or neighborhood associations in Albuquerque, for example. There'll be a neighborhood association leader for a period of time, several in the room today. At some point, that person steps down or decides they've done their work, they hand it off to somebody else. It needs to be the same kind of a process. And I'll just add that we've got some already built-in groups. I noticed in the news in the last several days, we've had, I think it was an ABQ Forward group that came forward that has a coalition that they're building. We had a group of clergy that announced that they have a coalition. These are natural members that will be doing their work as well, but that we would like to invite into this process so that they can have their stakeholder group as part of what they bring to the table. So it's hard work, and it's going to be hard work, and we just need to make sure we get an agreement that works for the community so that we have people that will take that mantle and run with it for a long time in the future.
You can't always reach consensus, though, on contentious issues. I mean, what makes you think you're going to get something useful rather than just very broad statements that everyone agrees with?
You will get consensus goals on each of those questions that we've identified. So there will be consensus goals across this broad spectrum of the community. But then it's up to the negotiators from those stakeholder groups to put together an action plan that really addresses those items. I mean, I think we're going to get tremendous answers from members of the public about solutions that work in this city. And they may not be broadly shared now, but through this process, any good idea is going to flow through the system, and ultimately this will be group consensus.
And it will allow the groups themselves to do the negotiating. We will facilitate this, but it will be the community negotiating with itself. So if you have a group of, let's say you have a consensus group of family members who've lost someone in an officer-involved shooting, and you have a group of police officers and their families, and you have another group. Those goals, I think what Scott's saying in Cincinnati, they found the actual goals about mutual respect, holding everyone accountable, having those systems in place, overlap more than you would think at the front end. But then in Cincinnati, if you read the reports there, it was an intense negotiation process to get there, but we have to have the community negotiating that, knowing that not everybody's going to sign every single thing. We get that. But trying to build this as a collaborative, I think, is the way to go. There will always be people in this process that think it went too far. There will always be people that think it doesn't go nearly far enough. We understand that. It's been the same way. All you got to do is Google read the newspaper in other cities that have been through this. We get it. But we believe, like Cincinnati, that we can bring much of the community together and that they will work through solutions that they think work for them.
Mr. Mayor, the people that held the sit-in protest last week, will they be invited to take part in this?
Yeah, absolutely, but we'd like them to show up with a solutions-based approach. I mean, this is listen, this is a free country, and you can protest, and you have First Amendment rights, and we always respect that. But we're going to do our best to make this part of this process a time to sit down at the table, roll up your sleeves with ideas and solutions. And it's appropriate and understandable that people would hold a sign and protest. But we're also asking people that as part of this process, come to the table, sit down and work with us. We'll sit down and work with you, and you'll work with other community members. So that's the goal here.
This is the most inclusive process of any city that I've looked at or worked with. I've been involved in other communities that have had policing issues, and there have had some limited successes with some smaller community initiatives. This one is going to be the biggest one, and it has the biggest budget. and it has the biggest need. So this is about Albuquerque residents addressing Albuquerque issues in a way that works for the residents and the people of Albuquerque.
And you can go to the mayor's home, you can go to the city website main page, and you can click right now and get on there. So go to cabq.gov. I can give you all the hashtags and the longer links and everything. We'll give it all to the press. Please do your best to get it out there. But you can actually go to the main page, cabq.gov, and there's a place for you to get on and start filling your surveys out as early as today.